Hello, today I will be walking you through a simple melody analysis of a piece called Wild Mignonette. So let's start with the questions. The first question asks you to name the key of this piece. It tells you it is in a minor key. So to find out what key it is in, we can first find the relative major key has 1 sharp. That will be G major. But to find the relative minor of this G major, we have to go down 3 half steps. So if this was the piano, we go down from G 1, 2, 3 to E. So that means the relative minor of G major will be E minor. The second question tells us to write the time signature directly on the music. It asks you to identify the time signature. You should always look at the simplest bar, but let's just use this bar for now. In this bar, we can see that this part is grouped in 3, and the first part is equal to 3 of the same 8th note of the second part. That means that there's 6 pulses in each bar, so we would write 6/8 on both clefs. The 6 means that there are 6 pulses in this case because it's a compound time signature. The 8 means that each pulse in this case has the note value of 8th note. Now we can move on to the third question. On which pulse does this piece begin? To find out which pulse it begins on, we should look at the last bar first because this is a pickup, or more professionally, an anacrusis. So if we look in the last bar, we have a dotted quarter note, which is the value of 3 8th notes. And here, we have 2 more pulses because we know that 1 pulse is an 8th note, and 2 8th note is a quarter note. So this is the 4th and 5th pulse. But we know that there has to be 6 pulses in a bar since the time signature is 6/8. And that's what tells us that this piece begins on the 6th pulse that was missing from the last bar. So we can write 6 here. For the fourth question, it tells us to write the correct rest or rests in the box at letter A. So here at letter A, we can simply look at the note above, which is an 8th note. That means that the rest in the box is most likely the same since there are no other notes. So we can confirm that it is an 8th rest. Now on to the next question. How many times does the leading tone occur in this excerpt? So we know that we're in E minor, and the leading tone of E minor would be D sharp because a leading tone means that it is a half step below the 8th note of the scale, which is the tonic. So if we know that it's D sharp, we can start counting. I see 1 here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's all. For the 6th question, it says, circle a subtonic note in this excerpt. Well, subtonic means that it's the 7th step, except it is a full step below the 8th note or the tonic. And that's the difference between leading tone and subtonic. So if we know that the leading tone is D sharp, then the subtonic would be 1 half step below D sharp, which would be D. And it is also 1 whole step below E. So if we try to find a D in this excerpt, we can see immediately that there is a D natural right here. Okay, and now for question 7, name the interval at letter B. Here we have G to B. We know that it's a third because if we count 1, 2, 3. So it has to be a third. But we need to determine if it's a major third or minor third. To do that, we look in the major key of the bottom note. In this case, it's G major. And we see if the top note belongs to that major scale. So we would see if B belongs to G major. And it does because In G major, there's no B flat or B sharp, it's just B natural. So this would be a major third. For question 8, it asks us to circle a half step in this excerpt and label it H to represent half. Well, if we look, the most obvious half step would be over here. It is from A sharp to B. So we write H here. And the second last question tells us to explain the meaning of dolce. If you don't know already, it means sweetly. If you want to know what terms and signs you have to know for level 5 theory, comment down below and I could make another video on it. Or it could be just musical terms and signs in general. And finally, for the last question, it tells us to name and explain the sign at letter C. So this sign here, it's a diminuendo. And it's basically a sign to tell you to get softer gradually. So we can write that down here. And now that we're done the analysis, let's connect the dots between what you see and what you hear.